Hello, and this is Judy Gonzalez, and I have Paulina Young with me. We are here to present the next chapter of the Pentaho Training and Review Guide, and we will be your hosts. We will share the screen and go over each slide individually, and we will also be presenting the Pentaho within MSA screen to the side. So you will have both the preview of the document along with us performing the actions that are associated with our queries that we're going to be showing you in Pentaho.
So for the overview, we're going to try to go through accessing accounting system data, providing you with some canned queries and reports and ad hoc options as well that you can create yourself. And the source for most of this information that you will see, most of the reporting data, it's from the general ledger, the cash accounts details, document and accounting lines, and also your budget. And our agenda today is basically providing you with your link to Pentaho, how to access it, how to navigate Pentaho, just general kind of navigation, how to browse files, running reports, saving those reports, and also creating reports that you can create yourself and go into Pentaho, save them, and then keep accessing those reports even after you've downloaded it.
Okay, so first we have our Pentaho link, and this is the link here you will use to access the application. And once you log in, you will arrive at the screen that we're showing here on this slide. This is the home base, and then from there, you will either browse files, you will create new, and then there's also documentation. For us as Pentaho users, pretty much on a daily basis, our general navigation on this homepage is strictly to go to browse files. Most of the queries and information that you will need will be in the browse files section, as these queries have already been set up and established, and they are there and ready for your use.
So the browse files allows you to be able to look at any reports that are currently already created in Pentaho. It will redirect you to the file explorer. It looks very similar to how it would look on your computer, for example. And most of these can be accessed by anyone that has access to Pentaho. There are others, obviously my own personal folder. Nobody else can access that one. But there's other folders in here that some people may or may not have access to. But there are specific ones that we will highlight here that you can access, which the four available are the external services, VAT and reference data, which is right here, the all clients folders over here, and the VAT category data, which is right here, and VAT-based reports, which is over here. And then under the external services branch, all clients is also available for everyone as well. And then under your available reports, under all clients, VAT and reference, these are the reports you have available to you. Here, like for this, for example, is one that I recently created that has details for transactions in the OSR. And obviously it's unreconciled and it's just an interim sort of OSR that you can pull yourself to be able to look at OSR data. But you'll see a lot of these different ones in here as well. So accounting history with total, and we'll talk a bit more about those a little bit later. But these are some of the ones available to you under all clients. Under VAT category data reports, you have fund status, income and expense, your assets, sub detail, deferred income. There's a lot of reports that you can right now go and pull for your agency, and we'll show you how to filter them to apply to your specific agency as well.
Right,
And
and the
then,
main thing oh, I'm sorry.
mhm,
The main thing with these reports is get familiar with them, open them
yes,
up, see if it's something that may be of value to you. Not everyone will use every report, but they are out there and available to anyone who wants to use them, and as you become a more seasoned Pentaho user, you will, of course, probably be using these more than initially you would, but we wanna get you into the system, make you familiar with how to navigate through the application, and also be able to pull reports. But as far as the individual reports that are available to you, I would take it some time and look at each one individually and determine if this would be valuable to you, and that's something you might want to set up and pull for yourself.
yes, or schedule to get sent to you automatically every month or every week or what have you, like the 1010 report, your cash report. That would be a useful one to maybe get weekly, just so you can see what all has been done for that week out of your cash accounts. External services branch, all clients. That is also over here. Here we have VAT queries for specific agencies. Um, and we also have the actual query itself that you can filter down for your specific fund. Now, for running these reports, I did mention before how to filter things down to your specific fund. And in order to do that, you open up what is called the general VAT query, and it pulls VAT data. So in right here, once you have the query that you're looking at, it might be the VAT query, it might be the 1010 report, it might be the OSR details unreconciled, but the navigation will most of the time stay the same. So you will see this under your filters. And you can also see this in the screenshot, fiscal year 2024. If we're looking at fiscal year 2025, obviously we would be able to change that. And next time you want to pull this specific query, you can also save this report. And we will touch more upon that under the saving reports section. But just know that you don't have to constantly keep going back to kind of like a canned report and then have to put in your fund again and then put in the fiscal year. That's something that you can save for your specific fund as well.
Yeah, so
When
saving those reports does save you a lot of time.
yes,
And again, you can schedule them to run, and we will get to that in a later slide. But initially, when you open up a report, you're going to see the filter that's going to allow you to make changes to your query. When you click on any of those filters, if you click on the drop down there, Paulina, from 24, and you edit, there's a couple of options that will show up here. So you can filter on the fiscal year. It shows you can select from a field, a drop-down field, or you can manually put in your data. Just know that by putting in the data manually, that it has to be exact as to what Pentaho is looking for. If there's a mismatch or an extra space at the beginning, the end, or something like that, you may not return any values. So it's best until you're familiar with the program and you've used it enough times that you're good at the navigation of that. We suggest that you always use the drop down. And that is pretty simple. It's going to always, of course, have in there currently whatever the filter was set at before. You can add and remove columns kind of like you do in Excel. Click on your arrow, what you want to add. You can click and then add the arrow, and then you can remove as well. And that will, return your data that you're looking for. So if you change that to 25, you click OK, and it's going to refresh the report. And depending on the number of lines that you have, it may take a moment or two to return your data. So bear with it. And there you see at the top that your query has updated to 2025, and there's your new data.
thank you, Judy. So then for when you're viewing your reports, like Judy mentioned, you have this filter option. But when you view your reports as well and your browse files, if you click on a report, you'll have these kind of file actions on the right side. And then you have open in new window, run in background, cut, copy, move to trash. You can rename a file. You can share, schedule, add to favorites. I add to favorites is one of my favorites. I added to favorites a lot of different reports, especially reports that I created myself or that I edited, because I want to keep going back to them. So this is something that you might look at when you click on a specific report. If you want to add that report, or you can schedule a report like I was mentioning before, that we will touch upon here later in the presentation. So when you open a report, as Judy was mentioning, you get this filter that you can edit, specifically for this report. But there's an edit tool, and they open with a predetermined set of parameters, but you can edit or modify the report to generate different results. So for this, for example, it only has 2 filters currently. But if I click on my edit tool, it brings up these options on the left side. And then this is what Judy was mentioning as well, the edit portion of it. You can filter, and then you can add to this filter. So let's just say for this, I am looking for a specific title, so a specific act number. But let's say I'm actually looking for specific document types. So I can say that I want a specific document type to go in here. So document type is under right here. So let's say I want all X6s to show up that have that title. So I go in here, and then as Judy mentioned, it's better once you're starting out to select from a list, because if I were to type in X9, I know for a fact that X9 does not exist. So it will not bring anything up, because an X9 is not a valid document type. So if I were to select from a list, it will bring up all the document types that are currently available for this specific data source. So if I go into edit for this filter and then go to select from a list, X9 is in there because I typed it in, but I'm just going to remove that. These are all the available document types for this specific data set. So I'm going to do X6. I'm going to select that. And as Judy also mentioned, that you can limit the row limit right here. I have it, I think this is set to 500. You can change this to 5. And it doesn't mean that's how much data it will pull. It just means that that's how much data it will show in this view. So if you actually download the report, it will give you all the data. But when you're editing reports, I suggest you lower that to maybe even sometimes just 1 or 5, just to see if there's more than 1 line of data, because it makes it easier for the report to generate, and it doesn't take as long. So I have this set to 5 currently. But you can see right here, I have X6s. So it looks like my filter worked. So now I'm looking at all document types that are X6 that have this title that are under this fiscal year. If I were to change this to 2019, I highly doubt I would see anything, because this act number tells me that it's most likely from 2024, this obligation is. So I won't be able to see any data under that specific act number. But as we mentioned, it's pretty intuitive. It does kind of work like Excel, especially in the filter part of it. And in the filter section is mostly where you'll be working if you want to add more data, if you want to find different data. Organization code, you have line types, there's a lot of different things that you can look for. And those are available to you in the general VAT query. And just keep in mind that different reports have different data sources. So this data source for this one is the VAT data. There's other reports where the data source is something different, like a different type of data. It won't be VAT data. So you won't have the exact same options right here. You won't have maybe the reference document number or the labor hours or what have you. So that's something to keep in mind. And then to delete things, you just delete, and it will remove that filter as well from your data. So also something to keep in mind.
And also note on your query data, the data that you can add and subtract from your parameters, you'll see the little filter out to the left-hand side. That tells you that is a field that is already being filtered upon. So, if you're looking to add something, you know that fiscal year is already there, the title is already there. So if you're looking to add something, you can just disregard those because you're going to be adding to those particular search parameters.
Yeah, and then I also mentioned this, and Judy mentioned it as well. But again, we suggest, and we really try to drive this home, because it is very easy to do a typo when you're typing in the information. Because if I were to put in a space right after this 2025, it wouldn't bring back any data because 2025 space does not exist. 2025 does, but 2025 space doesn't. So that's very important to keep in mind. And always, once you're starting out, select from a list unless you know that what you're typing in is correct. So if I were to type in 2020, like I know this is right because 2025 exists. But if I were to type in 25, it wouldn't, because it doesn't recognize that as a valid field in here. So we can see data up down to 2014. But we just suggest that you start with selecting from a list, and then once you familiarize yourself with data, you know what data already exists in that list.
Yes, and then the next item we want to draw your attention to is in that filter on fiscal year box, you'll see where it says currently, it says included. There is a drop down, so you can exclude if you're looking for a particular title or a document type or something, but you don't need to see 2025 or you don't need to see 2026 or 23, whatever the case may be. You can do the excluded. It will pull everything but that information. So just be aware that it defaults to included, but you do have that option to change that to excluded. Let's say you've pulled this query several times and now you're looking for a current year. You've pulled it and you're building a report on your on your drive and you're maintaining that information. There's no sense in repulling 2024 if you already have it. So you can just pull everything but a fiscal year, and that applies to all of the different queries, whatever filter you're using. That option is there for currently to do either include or exclude that information.
Yes, and then as I mentioned, if you add an extra space after under specified conditions, it won't work. So selecting from a list removes any possible transposition errors. So we suggest you select from a list, just to reduce any chance that you don't get any data whatsoever. And that might happen. I mean, it happens. Oh, go ahead, Judy.
Yes, and remove the frustration of having to go back and repull that information.
Exactly.
So it's better,
especially if you forget. Yeah, if you forget to change the row limits and you have like 500 or 1,000, then you just have to wait for it to finish thinking again and then go back in. So remove your frustrations, as Judy mentioned, and just select from a list because it's truly just easier. And we've mentioned this before, but adding and taking off things is very easy. You can click and drag if you want to add different things at once. You can click and drag to remove them as well. And you just press these you can add them all together. You can control select as well. So control click different ones and just add those. So, or you can add them all, or you can delete them all as well. So there's also an option down here for that. And once you do that, it will update the filter itself and give you that specific data. And you'll see that it'll update up here as well. So as I mentioned when we first started, there are different reports that we have currently available that you can run. And as Judy mentioned, you can always look at the reports and just see if those reports are something that you would want to continue running, or they have data that you do want to keep getting, for example. Like the 1010 cash report, as I mentioned, like if you want it every week, just so you can see what happened last week, that would be something helpful for you. So we have these
Especially, yeah,
reports available. So go
especially
ahead.
at year end or at the end of the accounting period, you're wanting to check your cash, make sure you have, what cash transactions have hit. We've been under a continuing resolution every year for as far back as I can remember. So that one is a very helpful one, especially in the times that we're in with, maintaining your cash and knowing what available amounts you have to you.
So here we have the VAT status report, and the VAT is the Julian date, and it represents the date and the accounting period of the transaction that was entered in MSA. So you'll see a VAT number, you'll see a fiscal year, you'll see a date loaded into the system, and how many records under that specific VAT number. So here you'll see this VAT had 1,800 records. This one had 23. This one had 4,000. So something to keep in mind regarding this specific report is that the last day of the month is not the ending VAT for that month. And the first 2 days of the month, +2 or +3, can contain transactions for the prior month, just because they were entered in the old accounting period, let's say April, but they were entered for March 31st, for example. So it does happen occasionally, so just keep that in mind. And this just provides you with your VAT numbers that have interfaced with the Pentaho environment. So it allows for, and includes end of month indicator as well. So you can see right here, yes. So this means that this was the end of month VAT number.
And this is also helpful in the event that you're looking, like you do a query and you don't see a transaction that was processed maybe the day before. You can go in here and look and see the VAT may have not been updated into Pentaho yet. So, rest assured that, if there's no VAT number for that current day that you're looking for some transactions that were entered, it may just be because this has not been updated yet and has not closed out. So be mindful of that if you're looking for something and you don't see it. Anything that's entered into MSA today will not be seen in Pentaho until tomorrow or when that VAT closes. So just be mindful of that there is an interface process that takes place into this reporting tool that will allow you to see those transactions.
Yes, there's batches that need to run that run at specific times. So it's not instantaneous. So it does need time to interface with Pentaho as well. And then we have another report under external services, VAT and reference data, and VAT-based reports. And then, so this is where the VAT status is, under VAT-based reports, VAT status. Then we have the general VAT query, which is the one that I had opened when we first started. And this is a query that allows you to narrow down your transactions. So you can research your transactions processed under a specific VAT. So most of the time you can find the general VAT, you can find all your information needed under the general VAT query. It will return all the data related to the filters, which consist of the accounting period, the fund, and the fiscal year. So when the data for these filters is entered, you will receive all the information related to these fields. So general VAT query has fiscal, this one's been filtered down, but it usually has the fiscal year, your accounting period, and your fund. So for here, for example, this is the title. I can delete this and I can look for the specific fund, which is right here. Just wait for that.
Yeah, the majority of what you are looking for in Pentaho, you can find under the general VAT query.
Yep.
And this is a good report for you to save in your own folder, because if you consistently search for a specific title of transactions, you submit, all your documents under the same, or if you're looking for an obligation or something like that, you can set this up and save it with your own name, general VAT query, obligation, or general VAT query title. So you know that This is going to pull everything related to a specific title, or if you wanted to filter by, something else, you can save and rename that in your personal folder for your use so that you don't have to go out and change this every time. Typically for these, this is the most common one. I use this all the time. This particular query, really all I do is change the year, and pretty much everything else is I've got set in my own personal folder. So it pulls me the same information over and over, and, either change the fiscal year or add another year. If you're looking over multiple fiscal years for specific entries that you're trying to identify, this is a good query to get started on and to save and use this for your own personal use to be able to, identify and locate transactions.
Yeah, it's definitely useful. I know that Judy and I use it all the time. This is how we start our reports. Sometimes completely different reports can be born just from this query. So it's definitely a useful one. And you can see your accounting periods in here. Again, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of different things that you can filter by for this specific report and also for different reports as well. So something to keep in mind. So for the general VAT query, there's these 3 filters, which is the fund, the fiscal year, and then you can also have VAT number in there. And then once you have all these results, you can export them to view them and to filter that data even further and work that data in Excel. Because even though this is very similar to Excel, it is not Excel and is a lot clunkier, obviously, because it has live data, as in data that's currently pulling from the system. So it's just easier to download the report, and we will touch upon how to download reports here in a little bit.
Okay, the next thing that we're going to cover are some new queries that we've just recently established. This is for G-invoicing, and these were set up so that you can query by your GT&C, which is your 7600A, and or your G-invoicing orders, which is the 7600B. These queries will be beneficial to everyone, especially as you're working through G-invoicing. It's a little bit of a different application, and not everyone, they may not either have the roles to be able to see these documents in G-invoicing. So if you've got someone that's going to be assisting you, maybe that's not a G-invoicing user, but needs to be able to see the transactions that have taken place in G-invoicing that have interfaced into MSA, this is a great tool for those. And this will help you to locate and monitor those transactions as they come through. And remember too, G-invoicing is a treasury application. There is an interface period that will have to take place between G-invoicing and MSA and then into Pentaho. So just be mindful of that. It may be a day or two before you see your transactions, but this is a good thing to pull, month end, or if you're looking for something in particular on a GT&C or an order, this will give you that information to be able to go out and pull this information, download it and save it, and add to it, or whatever you need to do. If you're looking for something, maybe somebody hasn't signed something, or has this been completed and processed, this will give you that information. So individuals, like I say, that don't have access to G-invoicing can still see G-invoicing actions. They can just view them through Pentaho.
And the filtering for this works the same way as any other filter. The G-invoicing query for order query is per order. So you just go in here into your filters and you put in your order. We do provide a note here that says to not enter modification numbers, because modification numbers do not go into the system as 0.0 or 0.01 as they do in G-invoicing. Those are considered technically mods in the system. So we always pull for your specific order without the modification numbers. So for this one, for example, this is our order number in the G-invoicing GT&C query. It goes by GT&C, and obviously it starts with an A. That's your GT&C. You can look that up as well. And without any mods, if there are any available. So, and you should be able to see your order. But as Judy mentioned, there is a lag between G-invoicing and Pentaho. So you might not be able to see things immediately. We have another report, which is the accounting history report, which I believe most of you should be receiving every month. And that is something that is available that you can also pull yourself if you have questions regarding something maybe mid-month and you don't want to wait for the end of the month. That is something that's available to you. And it is under External Services Branch, All Clients, and Accounting History Report. So that is in right here. And it's used to pull obligation transactions. So anything that was referencing an obligation, you can pull that through here. And it works the same way in terms of filters. You can add filters, you can remove filters from this. Maybe the accounting history report needs more data and you want to see more. That is definitely something that you can filter. And again, to be able to see the left side, if you're trying to edit a report, you can click this edit content pencil at the top, and then you should be able to see all the fields that are available for you to look at. So currently there's their fund, accounting period, and fiscal year, but maybe you also want to see the BBFY, you want to see the amount, you can do that. So that is also available. So just keep that in mind. You can, most of the time, I think always, you can edit a report unless it was set up to not be able to be edited, like this one, for example. Like this one I can't edit, but this one I can. So if you see this pencil, you can always see what is available for you to filter by and what things to add to your filters.
Yeah. Also note too, where down below where it shows VAT query and it shows all this information, regardless of what you query by, you're still going to receive all that data from all of those fields. So those are pulled in, those are set up automatically. Those are the most crucial fields, and those are the ones that we use in our reconciliation and our review process. So just note that even though you're only querying by a few different filters, you're still going to receive a lot of data. You may not need all of it, but it's going to be there just in case you do. And once you download the report, when we get to that section, when you download the report, then you can always filter out. You can set up a pivot table and only pull in the data that you want. But it's better, when you're logging in and you're pulling this data, it's always better to receive more information. You may not think you will need that or will refer to it at a later date, but you very well may. So all that data is already set up into each one of these queries to return all that data for you.
Yeah, it's definitely easier to have more data than not enough. So we always pull as much data as possible and then filter in Excel from there. The next report that we have is the 1010 cash report, and it's used to pull only cash entries. I mentioned that a little bit previously, but it pulls both debits and credits, so it returns no additional GL entries. So that is something to keep in mind with the 1010 cash report, but it is something that's available to you to either schedule or pull yourself if you're curious on a specific date. So you can see it has the fund, has accounting period and fiscal year. Again, you can always press the pencil and edit and filter it by more. But these are the 3 basic filters that you'll see a lot: the accounting period, the fiscal year, and the fund. And obviously, if your fund is 898, you would filter this by 898 or 705, etc.
Yeah, so our next query that we're going to show you is the GL debit or credit query. And this will pull any transactions that either debit or credit specific general ledgers. And you can see by the example here in our presentation that we're looking for any type of expenditure entry. So we've got GL debits include any of the 6100s, so that we're looking for that. As you'll note in this presentation as well, that the filter is set up and it says or. So we're including the fiscal year, the accounting period as two two of the filters, but then we've also got an or in there, which means it's going to pull every transaction that either debits or credits an expense. So you're going to get both sides of that. Now, be mindful too that this is only going to pull those query or those GL entries. You won't see anything else. So if you're looking for a specific general ledger debit or credit, maybe, an expense, a check came back, or something has been returned, and it could have gone out and it could have been returned. Of course, then it would have a debit and a credit. You can also then maybe add an amount to that, but there's many different things that you can do on that. And this filter is set up now, like I say, with the expenditures, but you can feel free to add or remove any of those that you see fit. And like I say, just know that with that filter at the top where it says or, it's going to pull either or, a debit or credit to any of those expenditures that you're seeing right there, the way this is established now. But it can be changed, and you can make any updates that you want. If you go to save this filter in your own, if you're constantly looking for, debits or credits to, even a budgetary entry, you can put in those entries as well, set it up and save that as, budgetary debit credit query, or whatever, whatever it is you're looking for, whatever it is you're trying to reconcile or identify. The filters are there to help you and narrow down the entries that you're going to get returned when you make those queries. So, we encourage you to look at all these different types of queries, save them to your folder, and, make updates to them and make them fit your use so that you're, better managing your funds and your activity.
So our next section is how to save reports. I know that we've talked about it a lot, but how do you do it? So you cannot currently save reports in the original report location. So let's say you make changes to this, for example, you can't override this save just because of different permissions that you might have on your Pentaho account. So we always suggest, if you've made edits to a specific filter, let's say for this one, my fund is not 701. I'm actually looking for 706. So you can filter this down to 706, remove 701. That's not my fund. And we're going to do 705. You will sometimes run into unexpected errors, and that's just how Pentaho works, but you can usually retry it and it'll come up. So obviously 705 has nothing under 2025. So if I change this to say 2024, and I want to save the specific report because I'm looking for this for 2024, I can go ahead and make sure that your pencil is clicked. You're going to save as, and you can see that if you hover over it, it does say save as, and that's how you can save the specific report under, let's say, your folder. So if you were to go into your own folder here, you can say 705X GL debit credit. And you can save it under your specific name and save that. When you're downloading reports, we've also mentioned that we recommend that you download it as a CSV file. When you download it as an Excel workbook, there's some specific lines that get added just because of the formatting that it has to go through to become an Excel workbook. CSV is just your data, and it just kind of regurgitates all the data available and doesn't try to edit any of it to make it look like an Excel workbook or anything like that. So we suggest that you download it as CSV. And once you download this report, a new window will appear on your browser, and it will ask you where you want to save it if you have that set up. So I'm just going to save this. It's my 705X GeoDebit query.
Now, the main thing is once you save that file and you open it and you start working the file per se, putting in filters and, maybe freezing the top row, doing a pivot table, just remember that you have to then save it as an Excel file or you will lose all of your work as far as filtering and that sort of thing. So download as strictly as a CSV. And then once you open the data and you start, I immediately open it and save it as an Excel. This also, if by chance you open up the file, you do some work on it, you've made some manipulation, you've done some data, and let's say that something goes wrong with the file, it gets corrupted. You've still got your CSV file you can refer back to and open that up and begin your process of working and saving the file again. Just remember that, once you do that, Excel is the best way to go with your formatting. So make sure that you do that and keep that as well. Once you've done that and your file is saved, you can keep the CSV if you'd like, but again, there's no formatting or anything on that particular file. So I typically delete those just to save space. I don't need to have extra files out there, but that's a good thing to remember.
Yeah, I think another good thing to remember also is when you open your Excel file, once you've saved as, I don't know if you caught that when Judy was mentioning it, but when you open your CSV, if you immediately just save as and you save as an Excel file, it'll just open up that Excel file that you just saved, and then you can start working on it. And then we do suggest you always create a copy of the original data before you start working on it, just in case, because something might go wrong, a filter might go awry, some pivots might not be working. At least you still have your original data. And then if that doesn't work, at least you still have your CSV, like Judy mentioned. So we suggest you always just create a copy and then start working on the copy that you just made, by deleting some rows or adding some filters, etc. As previously mentioned, when you're saving a report, you should probably save it under your own name. I don't believe that you might have permissions to even save in the brand, the all clients folders or anything like that. So if you don't have permissions to do that and it doesn't let you save, you can always, again, just save under your own folder and you'll always see that report. So if I save that under my own folder and save that, I'll be able to see it later. So we suggest you do that, and we have instructions on how to do that here. You can give whatever file name you want. Usually, if it's something related to the original report, it might make it easier to find. So it's definitely something to keep in mind.
Okay, the next topic we're going to cover is creating reports. And this is really for a more seasoned user of Pentaho because you have to know the data fields and the fields that you're looking for and what kind of data it will be returned on those. But that is an option out there. So once you become familiar with the browse files and you're able to, use that data and you're able to manipulate it and make some changes to it, feel free to create new. That is an option that's out there that will give you some, specific information. But as we said, these are blank templates. There is nothing there to get you started, really. It's you're using a blank slate, and there's a lot more to it than just, changing filters and editing that information. When you go into any of these, whether it be an analysis report or an interactive report, once you open those up, you'll see that there's just really a blank slate. So you have to tell it what you're looking for, what you're trying to return in data. And so it's starting, like I said, from a blank slate. And you'll see this here in a moment when this opens. So here are all the data sources that are available to you. And like I say, you have to pretty much know what it is you're trying to pull, what information you're trying to obtain. But you can open up any of these. You can select it and click OK, and that will start your report creation. And because this is generating a brand new template, a brand new report, it does take a little bit of time sometimes to pull these data reports and pull them in so that you can start manipulating and using the data. Just be mindful of that.
Yeah, it also depends on how much data is in that data source that you selected. So if the data source you selected doesn't have that many transactions, it'll be pretty easy to get started. But if it has a lot, it might take a little bit longer.
Yeah, so here you see basically the same type of screen you saw before. It looks a little bit of a different, but the table that's listed there is blank. There are no headers, no fields, because it does not know what you want to return, what kind of values you are looking to return. So really, it's just a matter of telling the system what it is you want to do, what you're looking for, and then moving that data over to these fields to be able to pull and do that research on that. So, this is something to do, like I say, when you've got some spare time that you're maybe wanting to, generate something that would be useful to you that you're not, able to find in the general VAT query or something like that. Just know that it is out there. And when you create these reports, if you do create a report and you find it's something that's going to be useful to you and you're able to, use that data, be sure and save it in your folder, because you don't want to set this up and do all this work and then not save the report, and then you're going to end up having to recreate that same report. So just know that the options are out there for those users that are a little more intuitive on the process. This is like a business objects background, so there are several treasury applications as well that use the same behind the scenes reporting tool, the business objects part. Just know that, like I say, that the data is there, and once you get familiar with it, it is easy to use, but it does take some learning. It's a learning curve to get into the process of creating these reports.
And the process is largely the same for an interactive report. Right here, we have an analysis report, but for the interactive report, it will also ask you to select a data source, and it will look very similar to this. So, and then dashboards give you the option to create kind of like a reporting interface, and it can include different reports that you've created or that have already been created, and you can place those saved reports into the dashboard, and you can see and view your favorite reports just from this dashboard without having to open multiple reports from your home, from your file explorer. So that's something to keep in mind. And here we show how to create a report, and I also showed it on the screen as Judy was talking about it, but just to touch upon it again, we can go under Home and then Create New, and we either select an analysis or an interactive report or a dashboard if we want to create a brand new report. And then a difference to note between the analysis or interactive reports is that interactive reports have all the available fields grouped together. And each field, whether it is an amount or a specific MSA Pegasus element, and that can be dragged directly from the report. There is a lot of clicking and dragging in Pentaho, if you haven't realized, but there's a lot of clicking and dragging and a lot of filtering. So you will click and drag a lot of different fields that you're trying to look at or open up. So just keep that in mind. Here's Create New, Analysis, Interactive, Dashboard. And again, kind of the same process for analysis report or interactive report as well. And then when you have your report open, your analysis report here, for example, you can save this report by selecting, I always just save as. I don't like just saving. I don't know where it's going to go. So I just save as, and then I save under my own folder. And then I can just call this 705 X analysis fund, whatever you might want to call it. And if you save that, you'll be able to go back to it at a later date as well. And you
So
can
yeah, so
share.
you
Oh, go ahead,
yeah,
Judy.
you could I was gonna say you could start a report and save it, but not finish it. So just remember that you can, get your main data points out there or get part of those out there and then save it. You can always refer back to it and make updates and changes later. So, that's an option that you have as well.
Yeah, and then when you're saving reports, you can share them with other people if you save them in specific folders that other people can access. Again, I am not 100% sure on what you can and cannot save on specific folders. So I always just suggest you save it on your own folder just to prevent any errors or any I saved this yesterday but it's not there anymore. So I would just suggest save it to your own folder, and if you try to share that report, just download it and send it to them, or maybe have it scheduled to send to also to them. And we'll touch upon scheduling here in a little bit, but that's how we suggest that you share your reports, by downloading it to a PDF, Excel, or a CSV, and then sending that to whoever you want to share your report with. And for scheduling, there is a side here that shows all your schedules. Right now, I don't have any. But if you go to your opened or to your browse files, let's go to browse files. And let's say I want to schedule this 10 cent cash report, or any report that I have saved. So if it's a report that you have saved to your personal folder, you can click schedule by clicking on the report and clicking schedule. And then you can call it, whatever you want. You contract number search, that's fine with me because that is the title of the report. And where do I want that content to go? I want it to go on my own folder. So we click next. And you can here run it weekly, you can run it daily, you can run it every hour if you so desire. You can run it every 30 minutes, every 30 seconds. That's also an option. You can run it every year or every month. So in here, it's your basic kind of scheduling interface. So what day of the month, first Sunday of every month, when do you want it to start? When do you want it to end? Maybe it's just a report that you're trying to run for a month only. You can have that in here. And then I'm going to do just the first Sunday. I click next. And this usually takes a little bit, or sometimes for me specifically, it doesn't keep going. But here, now it's going. So
Yep, it
now,
has to load. Yeah.
yep. Now the output tab can be either Excel, a CSV, it could be text. I'm going to do CSV. You click next, and then would you like an email, a copy when the schedule runs? And you can say yes. And here's where you put your email. You can say, I want you to tell me when you've run this report so I can come and check on it. So you can put your email in here. And this is what the subject of the email is going to say. And here's the attachment that it's going to include. And you can click finish, and it will now start running that schedule. And when you go into schedules, it will show up in here. And then you'll be able to either edit that schedule. You can change it from monthly to yearly. You can change it from monthly to weekly, whatever you want.
Yeah. And one more thing I want to bring to your attention, Pauline, if you would go back to the schedule
Yeah.
and set up a schedule for any of the reports, doesn't matter. So when you schedule the report, you set it up there on the first screen right here. Very important. If you see this check box down here at the bottom, so what's going to happen if you do not check that? What's going to happen if you set up a report to run and you do not check that box? Every time that report runs, it's going to save a file in your folder of that report. So if you're looking, and you're also going to get the email. So if, what will happen is if this runs every day for 6 weeks, you're going to have many reports, many CSV files in your folder for this. So if you're looking for a report, like if you're going to have it emailed to you, I suggest that you check that box to overwrite that report, so that way it's not generating a brand new file every single time it runs that report, because you're going to want the most current, and you're going to get an email with that report anyway. So there's no sense in having multiple files within your Pentaho folder for reports that have been generated, that are emailed to you. There's no sense in keeping, all those extra files out there anyway. So this just helps keep your folder clean without having multiple documents in there. Because like I say, for every report, unless you check that box, for every report that is run, it's going to create a new file within that folder for you. So you can delete those. You can clean that out and delete them. But like I say, that's just extra time that you really wouldn't need to be managing. We're all busy. We've all got lots to do. So it's just best to manage your time that way and just keep those files within your folder to a minimum.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, unless you want the historical data, if you want to see the report from last week or last month, I mean, as Judy mentioned, you get it emailed anyway. But if you just want it in here and that's something that's useful to you, you can definitely just have that unchecked. But if you're trying to overwrite that data and you don't want that to clog up your actual folder, then definitely have that checked. But that is how you schedule your reports. And then in your schedules under here under your little drop down, you have home, open, browse files, and schedules. And here's where you can edit your schedules or delete schedules if there's a schedule that you no longer want to have.
Okay,
So
next we
here
have
are
resources.
yeah.
Yep. Paulina, take it away.
Yeah, so here we have some resources on MSA Pentaho and how to access. Here's if your password for your Pentaho is not working, if you can't access Pentaho, maybe you're accessing it to Citrix. So if you have any connection issues through Citrix, this is the numbers you can call and the emails that you can email if you're having any issues.
Okay, next for questions. If you have any questions regarding any of the examples we've shown you or this presentation, feel free to email our ESB Reports and Control email box and just use the subject Pentaho, and we will, get those taken care of and answered for you. Let's say that you pull a query and you see a particular transaction out there that you have a question on. Those would go to the BCED payables email box, and the accounting technician that is assigned to your commission will open that up, review that, and provide you with the assistance that you're needing. So we are here to assist at any time, and emails are good because basically if you have a question on something, it's probably a question others may have as well, and this way it goes into the box and we're able to manage those and respond with the same information for each type of transaction. But we know that, looking at the number of transactions that take place every month or every quarter, depending on how you're pulling your queries, there's probably going to be something out there that you're going to want to get additional information or maybe have a question on. So like I say, send us an email. We'll be happy to answer those and get back to you that way. You can save that email, and maybe it's a question on how this came about or how this processed. You can save that instead of, having a one-on-one question with someone. You can save your emails or just the response in your notes somewhere and refer back to it later if you should need to. Okay,
And
this
that is the
concludes.
end.
Yep, this concludes our Pentaho training. We hope this was useful to everyone, and the slides will be sent out to you so that you have those for reference. And if you have any questions, again, feel free to send us an email and we'll get your taken care of.
Thank you.
Thank you.